Hello viewers, welcome to our program on immigration and public affairs. I am your immigration attorney Michael Fulwani, and once again we have with us attorney Lutka Zimachak.
Thank you.
Lutka, you
Hello,
might have
everyone.
seen Lutka in our previous program, and she gave a wonderful information to you on our last program on H-1B visas. I think a couple of questions we still were not able to cover during the last program. So let us talk a couple of minutes about 2 or 3 items that are important also. And one of the items is basically the audits. Why would the government want to audit the employer? Why would they do that? Under what happens or what circumstances lead to the audits?
It could be anything. It could be random audits. There could be some leads
Correct.
that they get some information.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it's a random audit. So it could happen to a small company, it could happen to bigger company, mid-sized company, to anyone.
So what I have seen that to some extent that feedbacks come from the consuls also, because every year
As
you
well.
know that I go to
Yes.
India and meet all the consuls, and when they see many people coming from a same company and have the paperwork, they see that they have suspicion that the employers are not paying them right because they ask them for the tax return, and some of the applicants will say truthfully, yes, he's only paying us 26, but you say 70, but that's what he does. Or I did not work, he kept me on a bench for a few months. So the consuls then look at that employer who's doing something wrong, and they will then give that information to the Department of Labor and the USCIS, and then they will come into audit to see how many people are working there, for how many people they got. You won't believe that. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen those cases or not. There are some employers who are unethical, who will take some money from the people, who get H-1B petition approved, they come to the US and disappear.
We do see it.
They never even go there. So obviously there's a fraud. So the consul finds out those, immigration service finds out those, so they want to audit all the information about the employer, the payrolls and how many employees they filed for, how many employees are actually working, and that's what. So be careful. I mean, why am I telling this information to the people? Because some people will be truthful that this is an employer, but I've heard about this. I say be very careful. Don't get into, because you are going to get into a problem also. When you go to India for a visa stamp or something, or even you apply for an extension, then you have a serious problem.
But in some cases, even beneficiary themselves, they call Department of Labor. It happens as well.
I tell you what, interesting thing. Whether I should say on a TV, but I'm saying. This is about 10 or 12 years ago. My usual meetings with the American consul, and he told me that I am sympathetic to an applicant who reports to me about what the employer is doing, because he's truthful, he's telling the truth, and he's bringing to attention. I will be very sympathetic to that, which was very interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah, coming from the consul.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, so those are. The other thing is transfers. Okay, person is working for an H-1B employer. The employer says, sorry, I cannot continue your employment. The two situations when that happens, employer says, I cannot continue further, you find somebody else. Or the person has a better opportunity. He's getting 70 here, the other employer 100. So the situation is such that he needs to leave that employer and join somebody else. So let's talk about that. How does that work? What is the process?
That's a good news that the person would be is not subject to the new cap. So there's no problem with the transfer, assuming that individual does have an employer that has a good position for him. Again, we have to look at the position.
So you got to file a petition.
Who will file a petition?
The new employer.
Exactly.
But you don't have to wait for the approval of that. Am I right?
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no,
It depends. It depends. It depends on the employer and it depends on the applicant. It is a bit risky, but you're right. You don't have to wait for approval. It's called porting, and the employee can port just by filing. The new petitioner is going to file the new H-1B petition, then the employee can start working.
What
But
I-
it is
what I tell
risky.
them-
It
what
is
I
a bit
tell them,
risky.
First of all, file in premium processing.
Yes.
Because they are asking you the payroll, pay stubs of the first employer. You must be maintaining the valid status.
Yes.
And this other problem happens. Employer, when he's firing him and he gives him 2 weeks notice, poor guy, where he's going to find a new employer quickly in 2 weeks time?
But
So
it's
that
okay. Even 2 months, even a
But I'm
month,
saying,
it's
but
still okay.
Ideally, then of course they are condoning sometimes
Yeah.
the period of stay, but ideally he should do that as quickly
As soon as possible.
And
Certainly.
they don't have,
Yeah.
again, when talking about the transfer, waiting for the approval or not, do in premium processing. And then you and me have experience. We look at the employer's information, alien's information, looks like a good case, very little chance of denial. We can say, if you are really, really in a rush, go ahead. Best thing is to wait if the petition, premium
is-
processing does in
yeah.
10 days, 12 days generally comes up.
Yeah, 14,
So
up to
why
2
take a
weeks.
chance with that?
But it is a bit risky to port because just in case
Mm-hmm.
the petition is denied, the new petition, and the employee already ported to a new company, then unfortunately he or she has no status.
So now the other thing is here, the person is on a visitor visa, person is on a student visa, and he wants to change the status
Okay.
with immigration service because he is still in valid status. Everything what we said is okay, good employer, good job, deputies, money, no problems, right? He files a petition and petition is approved. Now in the petition when we file H-1B, we have to say whether he wants to change the status from his visitor student to H1 or he will go to his
Consulate.
country and get visa stamp from the consul. And there comes a question, some people have already done it. So if they have to travel, then they have to get a stamp from the consul anyway. But I told who has not done it, I say, listen, you have plans to travel? Will you travel a lot? He said, yeah. I said, okay, so even if you change the status here from F to H, you have to go to the consulate anyway.
Next
why
time
not,
you travel.
Why not just go because
Yeah.
then his problem increases. He already changed the status, he bought a house, he's got a wife and a children, and after 2 years he's going for a visa stamp and the consul refuses. More of a problem. So I say, stop that process of, now don't go for the process of change of status. You go to the consul directly and get a visa stamp. Because your visa stamp is done, so 3 years. You come back and forth, no problem, no issues. How many cases H1s or H4s go to India are stuck?
Unfortunately, lately there are many cases, unfortunately. So it happens all the time. They're stuck sometimes for 30 days, sometimes for 60 days, but sometimes for a year.
I have a case, it's almost year and a half.
Yeah, it happens, unfortunately.
What happens? I'll tell you what happens. All the consuls, when you apply for H-1B, they very closely look at that. First of all, they go on the website of the employer. Employer says he's not outsourcing company, all the work is done here in the US. The applicant's papers, and he says, oh, the company is going to outsource, they are sending me to work in Los Angeles. Consul says, okay, but he doesn't see that employer does that work. Or he finds that there are some complaints already going against the employer. Or he doesn't trust the degree that he gave is real or not. So many problems come, as a result of which they keep the case pending. There's a FPU, Fraud Prevention Unit in every consular post. The file is given to them. Until they complete the investigation, verification, consul will not issue the visa. That guy or his wife of H4 is stuck in India for a long periods of time.
And I have a question for you. Can you refile a new H-1B with the new employer, and are you going to get the visa?
Well,
That's what I get all the time.
We'll talk about that after the break. It's time for a short break. And right after the break, we'll continue this interesting question that you have. Stay tuned. We will be back.